Howdy ho, welcome to the beginning of the trade guide 2 time a month series, if you will. We're going to be discussing these prices here and how to gain value off of them and the reason for their prices. Now I know you see here the STs says nothing on it. It says just discussion time, and we will be discussing the STs because I not too knowledgeable on those at the moment. But here we're looking at the pots is where we're going to start off here. Now pots, great, wonderful, they max you up. Why wouldn't you like them? The life is gonna cost you 1 life. It almost makes sense because well, 1 life should equal 1 life. It's like B equals B. Anyway, furthermore, we're looking at the mana 2.3 equals 1 life. Now, I know you're seeing all these decimals and you're like, what's the deal with all these decimals? I'm going to explain that here as mana you can see sold in pairs of 2 mana being sold for 1 life. Sometimes you'll see 3 mana sold for 1 life. You rarely see 1 mana for 1 life. Like, you never see that. And you rarely see 4 mana for 1 life. But I see the most common trade is 2 mana you will get 1 life for. 1 life you will get out of 2 mana most of the time. Now, the reason for that is because defense usually sells as 4 for 1 life, or 5 for 1 life, right? Which is kind of a little up and down. But anyway, furthermore, that's kind of what throws it off here, because mana just about always costs 2 defense. Pretty much always. That's a real standard rule as of now. But if you can sell 5 defense for 1 life, that would upgrade, if you will, the price of mana to life. Now, the main reason that decimal is where it is for the mana to life is because sometimes you see 3, but you usually see 2, and that sometimes is the decimal pretty much. And that's mana for you. Defense, we're looking at 4.7, 4 2/3, if you will. I just rounded that for time being. You see 4.7. Now, you usually see 5, you sometimes see 6, and you sure as hell see a lot of people trying to buy life for 4 defense. Successful maybe, but not certainly, that's for sure. I see the most common trade as of now at 5 life, but I certainly see 4 life being something that does happen. It does happen. Not as often. I mean, I have traded 4 defense for a life, but for the most part, you're going to have to trade 5 for a life. And that's kind of what puts the decimal where it is, a little bit more on the 5 side rather than the 4. Moving on, while we're doing this, let's sell some life. Why not? Do I even have life to sell? Yes, I do. I gotta remax this archer. Anyway, back to the point. Okay, yeah, point. Now, vitality is at 5.7 for 1 life. You're gonna have to pay 5.7 vitality, most commonly for a life. Now, a lot of my explaining just revolves around the decimal, right? You can tell it's really on and off between 5 and 6, right? Like if you're buying life for 7 vitality, you think, oh, that's a great deal, right? Or you're getting 7 vitality for 1 life, pardon. You think that's a great deal, but if you get 4 vitality for 1 life, you kind of think, well, that was awful. Um, at any rate, that's kind of what puts it at 5 or 6. Now, I'm reaching more to 6 on this because 5 is great, but 6 is better, right? And people know that. People notice that. People consider that. And people abuse that. As they should. That's kind of how trading works. You abuse um, the you well, let me think of good words for this. You will abuse the desperate people, and desperate people will give you 6 rather than 5. That's kind of why you most commonly see 6 vitality given to you for 1 life rather than 5, which puts the decimal where it is at today, 5.7 now. Let's check out attack. Attack is pretty down low. It's lower than vitality because of the mana event right now, I'm assuming. Or there was a mana event recently, and people have a lot of it, and you commonly see um, 8 life for 1, or, so, geez, 8 attack for 1 life, which makes sense because there's so much attack running around. You just want to get rid of it, you want to get that life, and you want that life guaranteed. Why waste time, right? Again, with the desperacy factor. Um, that's why it's so low on the list at 6.7, which is roughly 7, yes. And it's not at 8, not near 8, because you still see a lot of people going for 4 attack for 1 life, or 5 attack for 1 life, or 6 attack for 1 life, right? And that seems low at this time around, because it is. It should be at around 7 or 8, but it's not. People won't accept that a lot of times. They're fetching for value, like you should be with trading. Makes sense, but that's kind of where it is at a middle ground. I see most commonly 7 attack given to you rather than 6 attack for a life. I see that more. That's kind of why the decimal is at where it is today. Moving on, we have speed at 7.3. Now the reason for that is mainly because you see buying speed 6 for 1 life, or buying speed 8 for 1 life, and that's roughly 7. But I do sure as hell see 8 a lot. When maxing a character looking for speed, I tend to look for speed a lot more than I should. I usually finish on the stats speed and vit, which people get real desperate for, you'll notice. So that's a real good investment, by the way. Investing in speed and vit, that's something you could want to keep, because you never know. If you see someone looking for that, you will have it, which is a good thing to keep in mind. At any rate, 7.3, I do see 8 sometimes, I do see 6 sometimes, but I see 8 a lot more. That kind of is putting the decimal where it is at today. Anyway, moving on. We have dexterity and wisdom are at a complete tie, I've decided. And that's 8. 8 for 1 life. You're giving 8 dexterity for 1 life, or you're giving 8 wisdom for 1 life. Now, I would do like a 7.3 normally, but of course that would tie with the speed, which it is not. People do prefer speed over dex and wisdom this time around. And that's kind of what's putting it at 8 because of that preference that people have. And I see selling 8 wisdom for 1 life, and I see selling 8 dexterity for 1 life a lot, as do I see buying 8 dexterity and buying 8 wisdom a lot, which is just a common trade this time around, putting that offer where it is had today. Anyway, now we're gonna move on to a whole new section, the weapon tops, the highest tier trading for weapons. We have at the very top of the list acclaim. Now, acclaim should be about one life. That is the very basic cost of an acclaim, right? If you're buying acclaim, you will have most likely, depending on your despeраcy, a life in your inventory to just get it real quick. But it's at a point 3 because there's always that guy or the few people that will take it for 2, or the few people that will try to sell it for 2. And you see that commonly, um, which puts it where it is right now at a point 3. Moving on, we have the cosmic. Now, don't get me wrong, the next few top weapons are really close. I mean, a decimal on life is really uh, not that noticeable, frankly. But they're still ranked based on specific things. The cosmic, these are mainly ranked on the usage and efficiency of classes, frankly. Um, a lot of people prefer melees, which is the reason that, claims and stuff like that cost more than, um, you know, non-melee class items. Uh, so really, I ended up, without really realizing, I kind of ranked these all based on usage. Acclaim being used most, right? Cosmic being used second in hand, putting it at 0.7 life, which I put law for some reason. Pardon. Fix that real quick. Like, okay, now covert. Uh, 0.5 life, as it is usually bought for 1 mana. Recomp, 0.3 life, as it's bought for about 2 defense, if not 3. Um, which I think is exactly 0.3 life. And then Masamune, I think I spelled that right, if I'm not mistaken, 0.2 life. And that's because usually it just costs like 1 defense or 2 defense to get a Masamune. Really, really cheap. Now we're gonna go to the next topic. We're looking at armor tops. At the very top, we have a tie between Hydra and Acropolis. And the reason for that, I assume, is because there is only 3 armor tops, and dagger classes and melee classes are pretty tied as far as defensive properties go, just as dagger classes have pretty even defense for their range, and melees have great defense for their range. And don't get me wrong, G-Sork is just at the bottom at a 0.2. My only reason for this, I really couldn't tell you why, is just because it's a G-Sork. It's just the way it is, frankly. It's always been a little bit on the bottom of the line. Like this G-Sork here in my vault, I probably never gonna use it. I might just get on my knees and pray that I may someday, but as of now, it's just gonna sit there. Moving on, we have the rings, which I messed up the line here. I'm a little bit disappointed in myself. We'll fix that real quick. Pardon me. Get rid of that. Wonderful. Okay, the rings. At the very top, you would probably expect the Decades, Ring of Decades. Coming in at 12 life for 1 Ring of Decades. That's usually what I sell it for. Now, don't get me wrong. You can sell a Ring of Decades for 16 life. You can sell a Ring of Decades, or you can buy a Ring of Decades for 8 life. You can do that. It is very probable. But if you notice, the difference between both of those is 4, which averages at 12 life, funnily enough. And I see 12 life for decades as the most common trade, uh, and I just threw it in there because it just makes most sense at this time. It is the most common trade seen. UBHP, 8 life, very standard, very expected. Um, it's been that way for quite a while. Running down is where stuff gets a little bit on the rocky road. UB def at 1 life. Now, why UB def? Well, you notice it's tied with attack because um, because it just is. Now, the need for defense and attack differs a lot more than the need for mana power, or the need for dex, or the need for whiz, or the need for speed. The need for attack and defense is what you change through most, I notice. Like, I notice, oh man, I need more damage to kill this event chest. A lot more than I am like, oh, I need more magic power to kill this event chest, or I need more wisdom to kill this event chest, or you know. And with that, same with defense. I think, all aside from health, of course, which is what you're most often using. Defense, like, oh, these guys are real spammy, right? I need to put on a def ring so I can just take less damage per hit. As to a speed ring, or say, or a wisdom ring, like, oh, I gotta get out of here with the speed ring because all these guys are attacking. You don't see that as often, uh, and that's kind of why UB def and UB attack are where they are, because of their usability. You see them most often. Um, that's why they are tied. Now the rest of them at the bottom are tied at 0.6 life. I don't know if I mentioned the price for the UB def and attack. That is 1 life at this time. Moving down, you have the UB MP, the UB Dex, the UB Wiz, and the UB Speed. Pardon. All at 0.6 life, which is just over half. So about a mana. Mana and more, maybe. Mana and a death. I don't know. That's just a common trait I see. It makes most sense to me, having averaged it out. The thing is with UB Dex as to UB Attack, they're so similar, but a lot of classes rely on dexterity more than attack. So having that attack to supplement your dexterity that you will most commonly have is kind of why attack is higher than dexterity this time. Right, now, STs, discussion time. I don't know much about STs myself. See, yeah, I have what, like 3 as to variety in here. Now, STs are sold by the Deca, right? Like, oh, I want 2 decades for this pixie sword, or I want 1 decade and 4 life for this pixie sword, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And since the Ring of Decades is so differentiated in life, it's really hard to tell what STs are going to cost, because the price of decades is always a little bit shifty. So, really, STs, yes, some cost more than others, some are better than others. They're based on the price of your decades, and decades, um, they flip around a lot. So, that's kind of why I don't really have certain prices for STs, because it's based on what decades cost. And yes, I have a solid number for what decades cost right now, but that's just the average of everything. really, that's why STs are where they are right now, and that is unknown. Uh, one morning I woke up seeing people asking for 2 decades for a pixie sword, and some mornings you'll see like 8 life or something, because it's all based around what the decades cost, frankly. Because chances are, whenever you're buying an ST that you want, you will end up throwing in a decades into the offer to complete the trade, right? And that is all of the important trades at this time. I really hope you enjoyed um, seeing the prices at this time. I hope it is useful to you. And most of all, I thank you for watching this, taking some time out of your day to check it out. If you think this could be helpful to someone, share it to them, show them. And if you want to see more like this, I'll be putting more up every 15 days. Right now, that sounds a little bit specific, but that's just because 2 a month is all you really need with price guides. Because yes, prices change over the course of time, but they don't change that much over a month, but they certainly do, a little bit. So that's why 2 a month seems pretty reasonable to me. At any rate, we're gonna end right there. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.